Tonight, we are learning a neighbor flagged down police when he suspected a man was drunk and got behind the wheel. That driver later shot and killed a Newman, California police officer during the traffic stop. Last night, friends and family held a candlelight vigil for Officer Ronil Singh, just hours after police arrested the suspect. Police arrested the 33-year-old in a home about 200 miles south of the shooting scene. Police believe he was fleeing to Mexico when he was arrested.
This suspect is in our country illegally. He doesn't belong here. He's a criminal.
He enjoyed his job. From the wife, the family, I'd like to thank all you guys for all the service and everything.
7 others were arrested in connection with the shooting, accused of aiding and abetting the suspect and helping him evade police.
Clallam County.
Hello and welcome to Fox News at Night. I'm Shannon Bream in Washington. We began with the tragedy sparking a national debate in simmering battles over sanctuary cities and border security. Chief Correspondent Jonathan Hunt joins us now from Los Angeles. Hey, Jonathan.
Good evening, Shannon. The alleged killer of Ronil Singh was apparently trying to make a run for Mexico, but officers aided by aerial surveillance swept in to arrest him in Bakersfield. That's in central California, some 200 miles south of where the shooting happened. The arrest came just 48 hours after 33-year-old Officer Ronil Singh was gunned down. He leaves behind his wife and 5-month-old son. Today, Officer Singh's brother broke down as he thanked police and sheriff's deputies for finding the suspect.
There's a lot of people out there that misses him. And a lot of law enforcement people that I don't know that work days and nights to make this happen. I'd like to thank you from the bottom of my heart.
The suspect, Gustavo Perez Arriaga, was in the U.S. illegally, according to the local sheriff, who angrily denounced California's so-called sanctuary laws, which the sheriff said prevented Perez Arriaga from being deported for previous DUI convictions.
This is a criminal illegal alien with prior criminal activity that should have been reported to ICE. We were prohibited, law enforcement was prohibited because of sanctuary laws, and that led to the encounter with Officer Singh. I'm suggesting that the outcome could have been different if law enforcement wasn't restricted, prohibited, or had their hands tied because of political interference.
Officer Singh was shot dead around 1 a.m. Wednesday morning after stopping a driver on suspicion of DUI. Moments later, he radioed, "Shots fired. I've been hit." He was a legal immigrant who had come to the U.S. from Fiji, where he was born. He studied criminal justice once he got here and spent 12 years in law enforcement, 7 of those with the Newman Police Department. He even took and paid for extra English lessons to help make himself better understood by his colleagues. The Newman Police Department, by the way, Shannon, has just 12 officers, a close-knit family in the words of the police chief, and a family that will never forget Ronil Singh. Shannon?
Well, Jonathan, they got their suspects. We'll watch this case very closely. Thank you very much. Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen is in El Paso, Texas, where an 8-year-old Guatemalan boy was detained with his father before dying in government custody after 2 hospital visits. Nielsen touring multiple stations and substations operated by Customs and Border Protection and meeting with EMTs and other first responders. Nielsen scheduled to move on to Yuma, Arizona tomorrow. Well, judging from his tweets, President Trump is keeping a close eye on the border as he stays here in D.C. again this weekend, though nearly all lawmakers are out of town amidst this partial government shutdown. Rich Edson joins us now with the latest from the White House and the Big Island of Hawaii.
Oh, that's right. Too bad I'm not going live from there, but
I know.
We'll make do with this.
Thanks for being with us, though.
Pleasure to be here. So, you know, Shannon, there is no indication this partial government shutdown ends this year. Congress is mostly out of town. President Trump is still here, tweeting, quote, "We will be forced to close the southern border entirely if the obstructionist Democrats do not give us the money to finish the wall and also change the ridiculous immigration laws that our country is saddled with." Hard to believe there was a Congress and president who would approve. The The president is also threatening again to cut aid to Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador for failing to prevent their citizens from traveling illegally to the U.S. border. The White House and Democrats are a few $1 billion apart on funding for border security. President Trump insists on money for a wall. House Democrats say the president's wall proposal is immoral, ineffective, and expensive. Republicans are now trying to pin shutdown blame on House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi, saying she's refusing to negotiate on wall funding to appeal to liberal House Democrats and assure their support in her race for Speaker.
She does not have the votes, and if she cuts a deal with the president of any sort before her election on January 3rd, she's at risk of losing her speakership. So we're in this for the long haul.
Republicans are also pointing to a story published in the Washington Free Beacon claiming Pelosi is spending the shutdown vacationing at a luxury resort in Hawaii. Pelosi's office has refused to confirm or deny the story. Our Capitol Hill team says leaders from both parties haven't been seen lately on Capitol Hill. Republicans say Democrats have shut down negotiations. Democrats say the shutdown should have never happened. New York Congressman and Democratic Caucus Chairman Hakeem Jeffries tweets, quote, "Day 7 of the Trump shutdown, Republicans continue to hold the American people hostage. We refuse to pay $5 billion ransom note. In other words, take a hike." Congressional leaders say they'll give members at least 24 hours notice to return to Washington to vote on any agreement to fund the government. Shannon?
Unlikely before next Thursday, but we'll all be ready if it happens. Thanks, Rich. All right, let's bring in tonight's Power Panel. Fox News contributor Jamu Green, Border Patrol Council Vice President Art Del Cueto, and Fox News political analyst Gianno Caldwell. Welcome to all of you.
Good evening.
Okay, I want to play a little bit more of what the sheriff had today to say today about the fact that California has these sanctuary state policies and it makes his job tougher. Here's what he said.
Suggesting that the outcome could have been different if law enforcement wasn't restricted, prohibited, or had their hands tied because of political interference. Why are we providing sanctuary for criminals, gang members? It's a conversation we need to have.
Jamil, your reaction?
Well, first and definitely foremost, you think that about the family, and prayers go out to the family, to the community. And it's really important, I think, in these times that you don't use a crime like this to demonize all undocumented immigrants. We want this murderer to have justice that is swift and harsh, but that certainly does not mean that there is a link of criminality to the rest of undocumented immigrants, as some, and I don't think anyone's making that suggestion.
No one said that. Where did that
many
come from?
Republicans want that to be the case, when the reality is that undocumented immigrants in this country commit considerably less crimes than native-born Americans.
But what we're talking about is this one situation where apparently, according to the law enforcement officials involved, that this man should have not been in the country. He had previous DUI arrests, that he came here illegally. So in the case of this family and this slain officer, Gianna, we're talking about somebody that, you know, potentially the state's own policies allowed this or cases like this to happen.
Yes, I'm incredibly disappointed with my dear colleague Jamul's rhetoric on this issue. This is a safety issue, plain and simple. It is not a partisan issue. If we look at the pure numbers, 74% of individuals that were brought in by ICE in 2017 had previous felony convictions. We talk about the sanctuary city status of places like Chicago and the state of California, which don't provide any funding for those that may be, the ICE may want to retain. They may want to detain those individuals. They can't use any personnel for that. So yes, this is making our country less safe, and certainly this is something that I said 2 days ago on this very network, that Democrats are going to have to own any criminality that is perpetrated by individuals that came into this country illegally, because they refuse to negotiate with the President of the United States on border security. So when you have a Congress, a Democratic caucus who refuse to negotiate, when you have local elected officials who refuse to follow the narrative and the trend of if individuals are coming over here illegally and they're doing illegal activity that can possibly harm U.S. citizens, like we just saw, that they don't buy into that. So this is very problematic. And Jamil, I'm just so surprised and disappointed with what you said. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Well,
I want to.
Shannon, there's the link right there that Gianna is trying to make between criminality and undocumented immigrants. That is just not accurate.
Let me bring Art in here, because what we're talking about is
that tonight.
We're talking about this case and what clearly happened here. Now, Art, a lot of folks would say both parties bear the blame. Both of them have been in control at some point of the White House, the Senate, and the House, and have not gotten this fixed. You know firsthand what's going on at the border. DHS Secretary Nielsen is there today to see for herself. She's been there many times before. But, you know, right. Congress, it's up to them to fix this. Regardless of which party's in control, they don't seem to be able to get it done.
Being an illegal in this country and the security of our nation's borders has nothing to do with what political party you are in, first and foremost. Now, this is a horrific incident that happened with this officer dying, and it is 100% because of sanctuary cities. It is 100% because what you do when you have these sanctuary cities is you create a magnet for these individuals that like to break the law, which just by the fact that you're illegally in this country, you're already a criminal, plain and simple. Do people say, oh, well, he's just illegally in the country, he's not a criminal? No, if he's illegally in the country, that makes him a criminal. And it is definitely at the hands of any single individual politician or whoever that may be that supports sanctuary cities.
All right. So, Jamil, where do we go from here? I mean, the Democrats take over the House in January, just a week from now, and they've said the first thing they're going to do is refund the government. They're not going to have any funding for the wall, so that's going to go to the Senate. If it makes it through there to the president, he said he's not going to sign anything that doesn't have funding for the wall. I mean, where does this standoff end?
Well, I think one place we could go from here is to revisit some of the policies that we saw in the Obama administration that were very much focused on criminals that were here undocumented, and how to put in smarter policies to target them, to track them, to find them, and to get them out of the country. When we look at how this administration is dealing with immigration and throwing out mothers who've been here for 20 years with no criminal record, and anyone who they come in contact with, that takes away the focus.
They're here illegally.
Yes,
That's
it would be better to focus on those criminals and get them out.
Art, I know you had something to say there. I mean, this is part of what you do. I mean, and being a part of Border Patrol, I mean, you've seen this firsthand. What's the reality? Because, listen, we know under the Obama administration, he became known as the deporter-in-chief because they were turning around so many people. It wasn't a positive to a lot of people who supported President Obama. But we know that these policies of turning people back, of denying asylum claims, I mean, they aren't new. Why are they reported and treated differently now?
Because these people care more about being angry at a president than they do about the United States and the American citizens. That's what it is. That's the way I see it. Look, I have skin in the game. I'm out there in the field. I'm out there arresting some of these individuals. And it's easy to Monday morning quarterback it, you know, behind a desk and you know, Far East. It's easy to Monday morning quarterback it. President Trump has done everything possible to make sure that this country moves forward and that there's border security. And that's the reality of the entire situation. He's a president that has reached out to the National Border Patrol Council. He's on point with everything he says. And everyone needs to get on the same page, because, you know, it's getting frustrating to see so many people that really don't care about the American public or about our borders, about border security. And even with this shutdown, I have skin in the game, as I said before. You know, we don't know when, you know, or if our next paycheck's going to come. And, you know, I've been misquoted in some of the media, or some of my words have been twisted. And I can tell you right now, the National Border Patrol Council, which I am a part of, fully support the president and fully support the shutdown if that's what the president is asking for.
All right, Gianna,
if I can really quickly jump in there, I know that you really quickly. So to your same question to him, the reason why we see like nothing being done, I think Democrats have seen, especially some of our Latino brothers and sisters that are coming in, as a power base for them. So we think about in 2006 when Senator Barack Obama said on the floor of the Senate that we needed the Secure Fence Act, which 26 Democrats voted in favor of it himself. They talked about border security in a positive way back back then. But now that we see that there's an influx, and now Latinos are going to be the new minority, the new major minority, I think they're seeing this as a potential power block for them, so they might as well support anything that's going to keep these voters happy.
That is so
but Gianno, the Republicans have controlled the White House, the House, and Senate for the last 2 years, and their base wants to know why they didn't get something done.
And that's a very good question. I think we didn't have enough votes in the Senate to actually get something passed. Similar to that, you have to work with Democrats on it. Think about what President Trump offered the deal in terms of DACA. Democrats didn't even take it. They didn't want to take it off the table because they wanted to keep the issue alive for the midterm elections. And that's exactly what they did.
The president keeps reneging on his deals. First it was $1.3 billion for a wall, then it's $2.5 billion for a wall. With DACA, he's reneged on so many deals. If this president is about making deals, you have to be a man of your word. He sent Vice President Pence out to front for him and then reneged on that deal. How can you get to a place of compromise and understanding if the president can't even keep his word on this issue?
Listen, he's asked for a lot more than that. He and now several others in the White House say they are offering compromise deals. They've heard nothing back and don't expect they will from the Democrats until Nancy Pelosi is Speaker. So 1 week from today, maybe we'll have this conversation again and see if the government's reopened or what's happening. In the meantime, Jamu, Art, and Gianno, thank you all. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for having me.